Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Dustin. When my fiancée ignored my ultimatum and went on a school reunion, then posted a bikini pic with her guy best friend, who turned out to be her ex, she never expected what I would do. To really understand where everything went wrong, I think we need to rewind a bit. For over 3 years, I was in what I thought was a serious, committed relationship with a woman I was planning to spend the rest of my life with, Amber. We didn't start off as lovers. No, it actually began with normal friendship. We met through some mutual friends, and after a few more hangouts, we clicked. For a couple of months, we stayed in that just friend space. Amber wasn't in a great place emotionally back then. She had just ended a relationship that she described as manipulative. She decided to talk about it one night when we were spending time together. She talked about the lies, the emotional manipulation, and how it had messed with her sense of self-worth. I didn't interrupt much. I just listened. And I remember looking at her thinking, if I ever get the chance to be her man, I'm going to treat her the way she's always deserved. I guess, in some way, I made it a mission. I wasn't trying to be her savior or anything corny like that. I just knew what it felt like to be hurt deeply, and I didn't want to be the reason someone felt that way again. So when things naturally moved from friendship to dating, we built our relationship with a kind of care and intentionality that I hadn't experienced before. We took our time to understand each other's patterns, temperaments, and goals. We talked about where we saw ourselves in 5 to 10 years. After 2.5 years of dating, I was in a place in life where I was doing well. Career-wise, I was stable. My finances were in good shape, and I had my own place. So I proposed to her. She said yes with tears in her eyes and the biggest smile on her face. That moment felt surreal to me. I didn't want a long engagement. Neither did she. We both agreed that 6 months was enough time to plan a meaningful wedding without dragging things out. Once we fixed a date, the planning started almost immediately. Now, if you know Amber, you know she's someone who likes things done in a particular way. She's got an eye for detail and a kind of perfectionist streak, which, honestly, I appreciated. I trusted her taste, so I gave her the reins on most of the wedding decisions. She was in her element, comparing venues, talking to vendors, sketching ideas for decor. I gave my input when asked, but mostly I let her take the lead. I wanted her to have the kind of wedding she'd always dreamed of. We weren't living together, though. That's one detail people are sometimes surprised to hear. My place was small, and we were in the market looking for a house that matched our taste. Still, Amber stayed over a lot. Some weekends, she'd crash at my place from Friday to Sunday. Other times, especially when she had time off work, she'd spend the entire week with me. But she never officially moved in all her things, which is certainly a lot. With the wedding like a month away, Amber had come over to spend the weekend at my place. Everything felt normal at first. We were enjoying each other's company, like we usually did. Then she casually mentioned that her old school was organizing a reunion that would require her to travel out of state. She said it was going to be a mix of guys and girls from her graduating class, some she hadn't seen in years. But I felt uncomfortable with this arrangement. I asked her, plain and simple, with the wedding just weeks away, do you think this trip is really necessary? Instead of answering thoughtfully or even acknowledging my concern, she laughed and said, it's just a harmless catch-up with old friends, nothing serious. According to her, it would only last a couple of days, and she'd be back before I knew it. Now, I wasn't trying not to be understanding, but the whole idea of her going off alone on a trip weeks before our wedding, to hang out with a group of people I didn't know, especially some of whom were clearly male, just didn't feel right. So I told her, as calmly and respectfully as I could, that it made me uncomfortable. But I don't think she was looking to hear me out, so I let things be. We didn't fight that night, but the energy changed. The conversation fizzled out, and we kind of just moved on with the rest of the weekend like nothing happened. A few days before the reunion trip, Amber had been going on about. That weekend, she was at my place again. Things weren't exactly tense between us after our disagreement about the reunion, but we hadn't revisited the conversation yet. I thought she would probably be taking time to reflect and understand my concerns. Then we talked things through like adults. That Saturday afternoon, we had guests, a married couple we were both close to. While the guys, me, and the husband, were hanging out in the living room, Amber and the man's wife stepped outside to have one of their so-called girl chats. We'd been casually talking, just guy stuff. But in the middle of the conversation, Amber's phone, which was on the coffee table, kept buzzing nonstop. I ignored it at first. You know how phones can get. But after it rang for the third time, I glanced at the screen and saw it was the wedding planner calling. Now I knew the planner myself. We'd all talked a few times about arrangements. So I picked up. She was calling to confirm some updates Amber had requested. I thanked her, said I'd pass the info along, and ended the call. But then something caught my eye just as I was about to put the phone down, and I saw a lot of notifications. A message from a name I didn't recognize off the top of my head, but the tone in the preview was interesting. Curious, and honestly a little unsettled, I tapped the thread. I already knew Amber's phone password. We had that kind of trust, or at least I thought we did. The moment I opened the conversation, my heart sank. It was a guy, and not just any guy. After scrolling up a bit, I realized who he was, her ex-boyfriend. The same one she told me about in the early days of our relationship mistreated her emotionally and left her a wreck. The same man who was going to be at the reunion. She insisted on going to alone. I kept scrolling, and the more I read, the worse it got. These weren't surface-level catching-up texts. They had been talking for months. Their conversations were laced with private jokes and little references to things from their past. I saw her tell him about our engagement. She said, yeah, he put a ring on it, and he replied with something like, so I guess he's the cleanup guy now. She laughed. Some of the messages were flirty, others downright suggestive. Not everything was explicit, but it did need to be. The tone, the frequency, the familiarity, it all pointed to something more than innocent. The entire time, my mutual friend was still talking beside me, but I couldn't hear a word. His voice became background noise. All I could hear was the sound of my own pulse thudding in my ears. I just sat there, trying to make sense of how I missed all these happening right under my nose. I trusted her enough to start building a life together. And here she was, emotionally entangled with the very person she once cried to me about. The betrayal didn't slap me all at once. It seeped in, slow and cold, like water leaking through cracks, but I didn't explode. I didn't call her out in front of our guests. I waited. I held it in until they left. Because I needed to talk to her without noise and deflection. I needed answers or closure, or both. After our mutual friends left that evening, the house finally felt still. I sat for a moment, trying to gather myself. My heart was thudding in my chest, but I was doing everything I could to stay composed. I loved her, and despite what I had just seen on her phone, part of me still hoped there was some kind of explanation. Maybe not a good one, but something we could at least face together. So when Amber came back inside after seeing our friends off, I took a deep breath and calmly told her I didn't want her to attend the reunion. But before I could even explain why, before I could say anything about the messages she had exchanged with her ex, she snapped. She raised her voice and asked me flat out, "Are you insecure or something?" I tried to respond and explain that it wasn't about insecurity, but about respect and honesty, but she didn't let me. She cut me off before I could even form a full sentence. She said I was being controlling, that we weren't even married yet, and I was already trying to tell her what to do with her life. She said it like I was some tyrant trying to keep her locked in a cage. I stood there, mouth half open, completely stunned. I didn't get the chance to say anything about the messages I had just seen. I didn't even get to ask her if she was willing to be honest. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to understand where I was coming from. And then, just like that, she turned around, went into the guest room, and started packing her things. My mind was too numb to catch up with everything that had just happened. Within a few minutes, she had stormed out of the house and was gone. I sat there on the edge of the couch, staring at the door she had just walked through. Everything felt like I was watching a movie. That moment broke something in me. I was even willing, somehow, to offer her another chance if she could just be honest and own up to what I saw. That's how much I loved her. But she didn't even give me the chance to speak. And right there, in that silence, after the storm, I knew in my heart, we were done. She might not have realized it yet, but something had broken that couldn't be repaired with apologies or sweet words later. She didn't respect me enough to talk. And without respect, love isn't enough. The house felt like a graveyard after she stormed out that day. The next morning, I woke up with a weight on my chest. I knew what I had to do. The first thing I did was open up my banking app and remove every single cent I had contributed to our joint wedding account. That money had been for us, for our future. And now, it didn't make sense to let it sit there like we still had one. I didn't want to wait around and find out she'd used it to fund her little reunion getaway, or worse, book a honeymoon I wouldn't be part of. Once the funds were safely out, I called my parents. It was a short call, but a heavy one. I told them straight, there's no more wedding. My mom and dad were shocked. When I explained everything, they told me that they're with me. We didn't talk after she left. Not even a hey, are you okay? Or a let's talk. One morning, I was at home, minding my business, just trying to keep my mind off things. I hadn't gone through her social media since the fight, but for some reason, I opened my app that day, and what I saw was a beach photo of her in a bikini with her ex. They were side by side, smiling like they were on some romantic getaway. And he captioned it just like old times, and tagged her in the post. My heart broke. The little part of me that still hoped that maybe we could talk things out died right then. That photo wasn't just disrespectful. It was a slap in the face. A final confirmation that she never cared enough to consider how her choices would affect me. She made her decision. I opened my contacts, blocked her number, deleted every message, every photo, and removed her from my life like she was never in it. I didn't sleep much that night, but I didn't cry either. I just kept reminding myself, you did the right thing. In the days that followed, I focused on surviving emotionally. I deleted our shared playlists, unfollowed her friends, and avoided the places we used to go. Anything to stop thinking about her. A few days after that reunion, my phone lit up with a message from Amber, but it was an unsaved number. She started off by saying that ever since she stormed out of my place in anger, I hadn't bothered to reach out. She said I'd cut her off too fast, that I didn't give her a chance, that pulling the wedding funds from our joint account and blocking her was an overreaction. She said it hurt her. I read it in silence. No reaction. And then I locked my phone and went back to what I was doing. A few hours later, another text came in. This time, she asked if I was still angry, said we were adults and should meet to talk things through. But at that point, I had nothing left to give emotionally. I was drained. So I replied, and I kept it short, plain, and calm. I wish you all the best, but there's nothing left between us. That's all I said. And of course, like she's done before, she tried to smooth talk her way back in. It's a pattern I hadn't noticed at first, but looking back, it's clear she always thought she could talk her way out of things. But this time, I didn't budge. I told her directly. I had seen the messages between her and her ex. All of them. I knew how long they'd been talking. I knew what she said about me. And I told her, you two are better suited for each other. Then I ended it for good. I told her, don't ever call or text me again. That was the line. But even then, she didn't stop. More texts followed. Some long, some short. Some begging, some pretending like nothing serious happened. She asked again if we could meet. Said she regretted how she reacted. Promised it was just a picture. Claimed I was reading too much into it. But none of it mattered anymore. When trust breaks like that, when respect goes out the window, it doesn't come back with a few sweet words. I never replied to any of it. I just opened my settings, found this number, and blocked it, for good. So here I am now, just sitting with everything. Even though it's all behind me, the pain doesn't just disappear overnight. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm completely over it. I'm not. Some nights are heavier than others. Some mornings, I wake up and still half expect to see her name pop up on my phone. I've spent a lot of time thinking, turning every part of what happened over and over in my head. And sometimes I wonder, could we have worked through it if she had just listened just once? If she had respected how I felt and stayed back instead of going on that trip, we would have probably had a fighting chance. I wasn't asking for much. I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted us to take a pause and talk things through to understand why her ex, the man she once labeled toxic, was even still in the picture in the first place. I was ready to have that conversation. I was ready to forgive if we could rebuild. But she didn't give me that chance. Instead, she made it all about pride and power. Like choosing to go was a statement she had to make, no matter what it cost. And what did it cost? Us. Her choices spoke louder than any apology she could offer now. She didn't just go on that trip, she rubbed it in. Posting a bikini picture with him and the caption? That was a clear message. And as much as it crushed me, it also gave me the clarity I needed. If someone you're about to marry doesn't think twice about making you feel disrespected, embarrassed, and disposable, then maybe you shouldn't be marrying them at all. So, I made my choice and ended it, then turned the page. Now, I'm learning to live with the silence and fill in the spaces she left with things that bring me peace instead of confusion. And I'm learning to be okay with not getting closure in the way I wanted. Because sometimes, the way someone exits your life is all the closure you'll ever need. Now let me ask you, what do you think? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to hear your thoughts.